Travis Hunter has once again endorsed his time at Jackson State. That's not uncommon, but I think I finally was able to understand how to articulate the importance and impact of these type of comments. Oh yeah, it's Locked On HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darrion Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and current contributing writer at USA Today's Saints Wire. Thank you for going on this journey with me. Make a Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey is over. Just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Starts with an S and ends with an S. Now, as we wrap up today's episode, we'll be looking at Texas Southern women's basketball, who has tapered off after an extremely hot start. I want to look into my Lady Tigers for a little bit in segment 2. The CIAA tournament has been in Baltimore for a couple of years, and Mayor Brandon Scott has a unique argument that I think really does stand up on why it should remain in Baltimore for the foreseeable future. But I want to kick this off with Travis Hunter's comments about his time at Jackson State, which are glowing. And I don't think that anyone is surprised by that, because if you track how Travis Hunter, how Shedeur Sanders have talked about their time at Jackson State, what it meant to them, they've always had glowing remarks, right? I don't typically try to get into these conversations often because to me, once you're gone, you're gone. But when Jackson State is brought into the mix, when Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders are brought into the mix, a lot of these conversations, they kind of transcend beyond the school. They kind of transcend beyond the athlete and where he's gone, the trajectory of his career. What it becomes is an HBCU profile. I think that whenever they're speaking about their time, it's not just, yeah, I love Jackson State, I'm glad I went there. It is often, I went to an HBCU. And I've always said this. I didn't feel like the couple of years of the prime era elevated HBCUs. I thought it elevated Jackson State. And when you're only somewhere for 2.5 years, it is difficult to elevate the competition you go against. Especially we're talking about all HBCUs. I think it would be unrealistic to ask Deion Sanders to have done that in a 2.5 year span that he was coaching at Jackson State. But he did a good job of doing it for JSU in the present, right? I personally feel like these comments do a really good job. Travis Hunter's comments do a really good job of, I don't want to say expanding the view. I don't want to say that. I want to say maybe just painting a good picture. It doesn't have to be about enhancing or anything of the sort. I think that Travis Hunter's comments do a really good job of painting a picture of a kid who went to Jackson State for the first time, leaving his folks' house, came to college and enjoyed himself. I want to break down Travis Hunter's comments, but this goes for things that Shedeur says, all of that, because essentially these are very similar comments. It's, I love JSU. JSU made me part of the man that I am today. Look at what I did at Jackson State for Shedeur. He usually adds that when talking about leading a franchise. But I want to be very clear that I think that that Travis Hunter's comments go beyond just Jackson State. I want to read these though, and then I want to break it down as well, if you allow me to do that. He said, and I quote, I've been with Coach Prime the whole time, so it wasn't that much of a difference going from Jackson State to Colorado. But one thing I say, you have to have confidence in what you're doing and where you're at. So at an HBCU, we had so much confidence. That's probably one of the best times of my life because because as I was playing football, I was growing as a person. I've got so many brothers that went to HBCUs now. So that team right there, I always feel like it's the best time I had in college because we had a lot of fun. We enjoyed being at HBCUs. or at a HBCU, and we enjoyed being inside of our skin. There's a lot to break down in that. I'm only going to pick a couple of things. Yes, he says this was the best time of his life. But the thing about when Travis Hunter advocates for Jackson State and advocates for HBCUs, the reason I never really knew how to feel about it is because I always felt like it fell in line with the top athletes come to HBCUs. And I just don't know if that's realistic. It's a once in a generation, once in a lifetime feeling moment of Travis Hunter coming to Jackson State. I don't know. I couldn't predict. And I don't know if I expect that to happen again for a while, right? So every time it was viewed from that lens, it didn't allow me to really understand why I thought this was important. And I think that's one of the reasons I didn't cover it. That and it feels like Hunter and Sanders are mentioning Jackson State a lot more. It's probably simply because I'm tuning into the draft and all of those conversations a lot more. And people are asking these type of questions about the collegiate journey. But anyway, for a long time, people would say, don't go to these PWIs, go to HBCUs. And as a host of Locked on HBCU, of course, I advocate and I stand with that. But when I heard, and this is going for all of the statements that I've heard, when I've heard Travis Hunter talk, I never felt like it was going to lead to another Travis Hunter move because, like I said, that feels like a once in a generation, once in a lifetime type of moment. I'm not banking on that happening again. I think that thought process, though I still stand there, didn't allow me to appreciate the comments and appreciate the value of the comments. This isn't for the 5-star. This isn't even necessarily for the 4-star. I think this is for somebody who is on the fence about where they want to go in college because, yes, he had the best time, but listen to what he says. This is a 22 or however old he is, 21, 22-year-old kid. Is he? Yeah, he's probably around that age. This is a kid who's saying, we enjoy being at an HBCU. We enjoy being inside of our skin, which is something that people have been saying for years. This is why you should go to HBCUs to be around more of your people. But I'm going to tell you right now, it hits a whole lot different coming from a Heisman Trophy winner than a guy or a girl who is a HBCU alum. It almost sounds like you would be being biased because, oh, you're just repping for your school. But nobody's going to even insinuate that Hunter is biased because why would he be? Travis Hunter has gone to Jackson State. He's gone to Colorado. He's reached the pinnacle of being called the best player in the nation. And he's going to be a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. And he's stepping out to say this. So often we question people's intentions. And I don't think that it's a great thing that we do. I fall victim to it as well. I'm trying to be better about it, but I definitely do it. We question people's intentions. We question people's preferences. We just do anything we can to try to strip away from the credibility of a person giving an opinion. You can't do that here. You can't do that here. And I think that people are going to hear it. Is it going to be the 5-star from Georgia who decides, you know what? I want to go to, I don't know, I want to go to South Carolina State. Like, is it going to be that? I don't think so. But that's not what I'm looking for anymore. It's never been what I was looking for. But maybe the guy who was looking at a different FCS program, maybe a guy who was thinking I could go to the G5 level. Maybe those 3 stars that you would have missed out on, they said, "Oh, he had a lot of fun. I would like to be around people who make me feel comfortable inside of our skin." I think that that is something that is being preached more and more. And it's not just you have to reach a certain age to understand. I think for a long time, it was kind of a thing that was talked about inside of our community, the HBCU community. Now I think it's something that's talked about more and more. I was talking to a couple of my friends who went to a PWI, and they understand the difference of culture. I think that football is just different at an HBCU. Obviously, they didn't go to where I went, and I didn't go to where they went. But I'll say, even if you want to take the sports out of it, it's just a different feel. And it's one that I'm not going to try to put into words because everybody's experience is different. But I do think that HBCU fun is a little different than fun at other schools. I think that, like, I went to school at TSU, right? Across the street was UH. And UH tried to just like claim this HBCU-ish thing. Y'all know, y'all remember Blackish, Grownish, all of the mixedish, all of those little issues that what's his name put out with. And anyway, but it felt like UH was trying to claim like HBCU-ish. And I just felt like it was we know how to have a good time. We party and we have black folks out here at the party and we close to an HBCU. And I know that's the case at other schools that have close PWIs in proximity. But to me, I think what Travis Hunter is expressing is something that you needed someone of his caliber, of his age, to express. And it's something that I think we've expressed for a long time. But now you look at this as Travis Hunter was the right person to say it, because those 3 stars who want to have a good time, they want to have success. And quite frankly, I'm going to be honest with you, the transfer portal is real. Even if they feel like they can follow the Travis Hunter model of, I'm going to go to this HBCU for a year, maybe 2, and then I'm going to get out of here. I hate that, but that's the way people are going to start thinking now. I never looked at Travis Hunter, and I'm going to say this, I'm going to wrap up. I never really looked at Travis Hunter or Shador Sanders as these big, I want to be noble, that's why I'm going to HBCU type of guys. They went because Deion Sanders was there. One was the guy's dad, and the other one was his idol. They went because of Deion Sanders. So I never looked at this as some noble, we're fighting the cause type of decision. I don't think that that's what Travis Hunter is trying to express or generate. I think what he is trying to do is say, this was a phenomenal moment. And by saying this phenomenal moment and really saying I enjoy being inside my skin, that is going to send a message that will resonate with some people. How many? I don't know, but some people for sure. Speaking of culture, speaking of being inside your own skin, that's kind of the driving force of Mayor Scott's plea to the CIAA, not even plea, but the pitch to the CIAA on why the tournament should stay in Baltimore. I'll be honest with you, I kind of like it. Let's break it down as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy to use website packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast and from coast to coast. So you need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support, industry leading service, and you'll always talk to a real person. So all you need to do is join Trade Master Program today at supplyhouse.com/TM. That is TM as in Terrell Matthews. Go to or supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering today. Plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day. Every day for your second listen, make sure you're checking out Locked On Today, because they're giving you the biggest stories all around the country. Doesn't matter what sport it is, they want to make sure that you are up to date. Now, I want to keep pushing. I know we just talked about Travis Hunter, and I love that part where he said being inside your own skin, because that's a big thing for Mayor Brandon Scott, the mayor of Baltimore, where the CIAA tournament is held. I know we were going to get into the event today, but when I stumbled across this here quote, this really series of quotes, I thought it was too good to pass up. I really did. I said, you know what? We'll get to all that other stuff tomorrow. We'll get to victors and all that good stuff. But right now, I want to talk about the idea of keeping the game in Baltimore, the series of games in Baltimore, because there's no telling. I know Charlotte's going to make a heavy push to get it back in Charlotte, and I think Charlotte is a great city. I was in Charlotte last year. I had a great time in Charlotte, and I would love to go again. I would love to go move to Charlotte. That being said, Baltimore is like one of the black meccas, to be honest. That just feels like where all the brothers are. I'm just going to keep it honest with you. I've never been to Baltimore. I've never been inside. I've never been on. I think the closest I've been to Baltimore is North Carolina, to be honest. So I'm not going to sit here and act like I've been all around. But when you look at it, it's known for being a black city, right? And that's lovely. And according to Mayor Scott, that's essentially why the CIAA should stay here. This is a direct quote. This is a match made in black heaven. Mayor Scott believes that the city of Baltimore and the CIAA tournament is a match made in black heaven, and I cannot agree more. I understand that this is a business. I understand that you have to make revenue off of this event. I'm not here to take away any of that, but I also am not here to tell you how to make revenue off of the event. What I can say is the quotes that have been presented by Mayor Scott via HBCU game day, I thought were a great match. Like, it just made sense. You got to make the funds work, but this is reasons to make the funds work. The CIAA taking place in one of the more black cities in America, it's not going to happen just because, oh, black colleges, black city, let's do it. But it is a reason to make it work. I will say that. So, um, Mayor Scott also said, you've got the excellence of the CIAA, which has been producing top tier student athletes and professionals for generations, paired with a city that is a cornerstone of black history. He continues to say, I never want to leave Baltimore. And in this particular moment, we think that we are the perfect fit because of where we sit in the country, in the world, because of what we're going to invest in, and know that this is not just some transactional deal. This is family. We're going to stand up with the CIAA no matter who is attacking it. And I think that's another thing, the idea of loyalty, the idea of protecting your own. I think that that is something that doesn't get discussed enough, to be honest. But look at the SWAC tournament. It's in Atlanta. Hello, bunch of black folks in Atlanta. I'm not saying that that's the reason they did it, but I do believe that taking a HBCU tournament to a city that is known for the amount of people who look like you to be around makes sense. Yes, Atlanta has the party aspect. It's a big city. Everybody wants to go, but it's also known as a black mecca. It's known for that. So I think it makes sense. When you look at the CIAA, other cities may not ride for the conference in the way that Baltimore would, because they understand this is ours. And when this is ours, when you feel like something really belongs to you, you feel the need to protect it at all costs. And I think that's essentially that quote right there, where he says, because of where we sit in the country, in the world, and because of what we're going to invest in, and know that this is not just some transactional deal, that this is family, we're going to stand up with the CIAA no matter who is attacking it. The CIAA is not under attack, to my knowledge. To my knowledge, the CIAA right now is not under attack. But telling them, no matter what happens, no matter who does try to attack you, we will always have your back is not something that should be taken lightly. You should think about if it's true. I believe that it is true. And that's something you should value. Saying this isn't just transactional. It's going to have to resort in some sort of money, not just for the city, but then also for the tournament. The tournament has to have a good output, but so far it has. And I expect it to continue having that. So I would love to see if it stays in Baltimore. The last thing that I want, or the last quote I should say, that I want to bring up is, we want everyone in the CIAA to feel the best love that you can get. And that's Black Baltimore, Charm City love. We don't want them to go. We're going to put our best foot forward and we'll see what goes. But we want you all to be here in Black Baltimore for Black History Month. He might as well have said Black schools, Black Baltimore, Black History Month. Let's keep it black. That might as well have been what he said, because that is the premise of everything. This is not just transactional. Funds will come. But let's understand that I'm not here for the money that you bring to my city, and you shouldn't be here for the money I can bring to you. Money is going to have to play a part, but this is family. This is love. This is peak black entertainment. I loved what Mayor Scott had to say about this. I thought that it was something that you typically wouldn't hear from a mayor. I don't feel like. I think this is typically something you would hear from people who went to the event. Like, man, it was a bunch of this Baltimore and CIAA. But then the mayor's like, no, this makes sense, guys. Like, I understand it's typically what visitors and fans would say, but this is a logical statement. The pairing is logical. It makes sense. Let's just make the money make sense. I love it. Let's keep pushing forward. We talking about family. Let's go to my TSU family. Y'all see the flag behind me? Leans to the side. Let the whole view get shown. TS, 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 you. But it's starting to taper off just like my ad libs. Let's get into what I mean and how that's impacted the Lady Tigers as we wrap up today's episode of Locked On HBCU. As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day, making it all the way to segment 3. And I thank you 2 times for that. Thank you. Thank you. Texas Southern has begun to taper off. One thing that I stressed as TSU was going through their hot streak is that it's a long season, and I'm a bet hedger. At the end of the day, I hedge my bets ridiculously. If it's one thing about me, I'm going to hedge the bet because I'm just not a risky guy. That's not necessarily my cup of tea. I am the guy who is going to play it slow. I ask my friends. So when TSU was the surprise of HBCU basketball, I had no problem calling them a surprise because that's what they were up to that point. I didn't want to say that they're the best out. I did say that they were the team to beat now. And I do stand on at that moment, they looked like the team to beat. But they were a team that kind of came out of nowhere. They claimed a lot of victories. They rose to prominence, but at the same time, I knew that the SWAC women's basketball landscape was going to be one that was a dogfight. You have Southern, you have Alabama A&M, you have Texas Southern, you have Jackson State. All of these teams at the top of the conference are fighting it out for who could be the best. And I'll tell you what, if you look at it a couple of weeks ago, it looked like it was going to be TSU and Southern. Now, Alabama A&M has worked their way into the mix. And I think that's the most interesting thing because it was TSU, Southern, Jackson State, and then Alabama A&M. And they were the one who had the worst record amongst the 4 teams when they played all against each other. So you're looking at Alabama A&M like, I don't know. Now you look at things 2-3 weeks later, Alabama A&M is at second, and they're probably the second most likely to win the conference. They just need to take care of business against Southern in the last game of the season, which is this Saturday. But you don't want to skip over Thursday because they do have Grambling State at the same time. But that's crazy, though, isn't it? That's crazy to think about how Alabama A&M is taking off. We'll look at that on tomorrow's episode or the day after. We'll definitely look at it before Thursday's game against Grambling. But the point is, this is a matchup. This is a matchup that to me, or excuse me, not a matchup. I'm talking about Texas Southern versus Jackson State now. This is a game that when TSU lost, it really did represent how far they've tapered. Because after starting, 14-0 or 12-0, something like that, they end up going 4 of 6 or 2 and 4 in their next games. They lose 4 of their next 6 matchups, all of which were on the road. Obviously, all against teams that they had played and beaten earlier in the season. But they go up against the road and they lose to Alcorn, they lose to JSU, you lose to Southern, you lose to Grambling. Do I think that TSU can play on the road? Yeah, they beat Alabama A&M on the road. So I know that they can beat quality teams on the road. So I don't think I'm that worried about playing outside of HP&E Arena when it comes to playing the game in the tournament. I don't think that I'm much worried about that. But what I will say is they're 13-4 now. So they must have been 9-0 at that time or 11-0. They were 11-0. They were 11-0. So what does concern me is just you're on a skid right now. And you got to get right with only 2 games left going into the season. I don't care about second, third. I wanted them to get that regular season title, which is something I say, it's a long season. All that matters is the tournament. And that's still true because playing at the SWAC level, you aren't getting into the big dance unless you win your dance. It doesn't matter if you're the most dominant. I won every single game in conference play throughout the entirety of the season. I don't think that I know you're not getting in. I know that you're not getting in unless you win your tournament. So that's why that's the only thing that matters. But look, man, TSU have been struggling for a minute. Winning a regular season title would have meant a lot. So to drop from being the lead for that to now going into third place, Southern wins this Thursday and TSU is out of the running for SWAC first place, right? Just the first place in this tournament, the regular season title. You're out of the running for that. Are you? Actually, you might not be. Only because of a 3-way tie. That's the only thing that could save you. But let me see. No, they're 2 games behind Southern. Yeah, so they're 2 games behind Southern. If Southern wins one more game, it's over. TSU is going to be at best the 3rd seed or 2nd seed. They can catch Alabama A&M. They just need Alabama A&M to lose a game. I think that they have the tiebreaker over Jackson State because of point differential in head-to-head matchups. But it's just kind of a taper off, man. And you want to see them get it back together. That's all I'm going to say. You want to see them get it back together. I do think that they're still a threat. That's one thing I will say. TSU has failed over the last 6 games. They've lost 4 of their last 6. But I do not believe that you should count them out. They're still dangerous. They still barely lost to Jackson State. Um, they did knock off Southern. They did knock off Southern. They did knock off Alabama A&M. They had knocked off Grambling. They've knocked off good teams. So the idea that they're not a threat, I'm not going to go with. I do believe that this is kind of a humbling moment. Of course, I would have to check the eligibility of certain players, but this is a type of thing that this is the type of season, and I hate that I'm talking like it's over, but this is the type of season that goes on that it's the one before you blow. It's the one before you blow. It's the one right before you say, oh, this is a team that came out of nowhere. They returned a lot of starters, and now they can be a team that's a true force. I would have to check the eligibility, though. If I'm not mistaken, I think there's a lot of juniors and below. I do think there's more eligibility on this team, but it's not something that I was overly looking for. Anyway, quiet is kept. Alabama A&M is creeping up. I think we'll look at that tomorrow. I don't know. It'll be before Thursday. That and Norfolk State, their chase and pursuit for undefeated. We'll look at that as well. But all in all, we will be back tomorrow. And I'm not sure what we're going to talk about tomorrow, guys. I really don't. We'll probably talk about the CIAA tournament, the actual action of the game. But other than that, I have no idea where we're going to take it tomorrow. So I guess I'll surprise myself along with you. In the meantime, in between time, join us for the surprise party. Until next time we see each other, family. Take care. Stay blessed. Peace.